And we're live. Here we have Ben Goodger of Nash on our Supply Chain Channel podcast. This is first few episodes, so we're growing into it. We're trying to get
Awesome.
there, but glad to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
All right, so Ben, tell us about yourself. Tell us about Nash. I think you're a pillar of the industry. People know you from your previous roles and now here at Nash. But tell us about where you are, a brief run through of that, and just to warm up, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. So at Nash, we build last mile delivery software. What that software is depends on the customer use case that we're trying to solve for. Everything from internal fleet optimization and management, multi-carrier shipping, connecting to local delivery platforms and on-demand providers like Uber, DoorDash, and bringing that all together into a single platform and using that to drive excellent customer experience and also making your internal operations more effective and efficient. Before Nash, though, I've been there for about a year. Prior to that, was at Uber for 6.5 and led the sort of initial launch and scale up of Uber Direct in the Australia-New Zealand region. And so during that time, got to work with sort of an excellent set of retailers in the region and excited to continue that experience at Nash now.
All right, great. So maybe while we're continuing on your background, how did you end up in logistics and supply chain retail fulfillment?
Yeah, it's a great question. Depending how far back you go, like one of my very early jobs was sort of at the opposite end of the value chain. It was at a sort of automation and produce sorting machinery company back in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I've sort of like followed the value chain through to last mile, and that's kind of where I've ended up. So it started there and then moved to Uber, and my initial role there was working with our restaurant partners in New Zealand, sort of launching new regions, new cities as part of that. And then the opportunity came up while I was at Uber to sort of, it was initially a project to work on last mile delivery, sort of came around primarily during COVID when you sort of had, we had this massive driver network that was no longer moving people around. Everyone was at home wanting to get things. And so we sort of put the two together, and there were some crazy moments as you'd sort of expect in that time. And yeah, so I mean, long way of saying I just sort of ended up there almost by accident, but I've loved being in logistics, and I think coming from Uber, where it's sort of you're focusing on a really tech-enabled experience, it's a faster and new customer experience and capability. I think that then has given me sort of like a good framework when I now look at sort of logistics more broadly when it comes to sort of standard shipping, other things.
Yeah. Well, when we're talking about that, COVID kind of showed us that e-commerce is the way forward. You can get anything and everything you want. So the question I'll kind of have here with Retail Fulfillment Summit is that how do you think that last mile technology will develop in the years to come? As in, what do you see down the pipeline?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and we spoke a little bit about it on the panel yesterday, and I think there's customer expectations are changing, and they're seeking either more choice or more certainty with their delivery options. And with different choices, you get more complexity. And so for me, the important thing as a brand or as a retailer who's offering delivery to their customers, I think you're only going to have more complexity over time as your sort of customer expectations change. And so I think the role of software like Nash and other platforms should be playing is, how do we simplify as much as possible for you as a retailer and give you the tools to sort of respond to that rising complexity? So it should be just as easy for you to manage an internal fleet delivery or work with a third party, move a customer order between those different workflows seamlessly. And I think that becomes even more true when you start to think a little bit further out with the rise of things like autonomous vehicles, the rise of things like drone delivery. These just become another delivery workflow to manage and another set of complexity. And so our view is that, the software platform within these retailers and within these brands should really be thinking about how do we bring this into a single platform where we can manage all of these different workflows seamlessly.
Okay, so someone pointed out that I shouldn't bring up as the question 1, but now we're question 4 or 5 in role of AI. It's something that we can't ignore anymore. There's AI in everything. And so maybe tell me from your point of view, I spoke to somebody earlier and it said it's not really AI. It's we call it AI, but it's actually machine learning. So how would that impact last mile for you guys and for the industry?
I think, there's a lot I can and will hopefully say on this about AI. I think I kind of agree with the perspective that a lot of people are just slapping AI on as the branding for stuff that they've been doing for a long time. machine learning, even sort of statistics, like, if there's a machine involved, try and call it AI, and that seems to be what, the marketers love at the moment. What I would say, though, is that if you sort of get into the specifics and you sort of start to think about generative AI or LLMs and the impact that they can actually have on the experience, we are actually seeing real life applications of that today, as well as continuing to sort of build on the foundations of other sort of machine learning solutions and things like that. So I think AI is becoming this term for this collection of smarts that exist within the platform. I don't want to get too bogged down in the definitions. I think it comes back to what actually improves the customer experience, what actually makes it easier to engage with. And we have some really exciting examples of this that we're seeing with our customers today. Everything from proof of delivery verification, using LLMs to improve address validation, customer support chatbots, all of these different use cases of AI and air quotes, I think are actually having a real impact today. And that's what's exciting to me. It's less about what's the definition of the tool that sits behind it. It's what's the impact of using it. And we're seeing some really exciting new things coming to market at the moment.
Well, AI is the buzzword right now, so everybody's throwing it everywhere. But something you covered I think is real interesting is that throughout the conference we hear it as a lot, customer experience. And that's kind of core to it all, because you're not doing this for fun. You're doing this to entertain, to enjoy, to delight the customer. So what would you say would be what you guys do at Nash for customer experience? What would be some insights that you have kind of seen there that people could learn from and appreciate?
I think there's a few things. I think the core of it is having a consistent and coherent tracking experience, regardless of the delivery choice that gets used. If you work with multiple delivery providers, you work with your internal fleet and external providers, maybe they have different delivery statuses that mean different things. Maybe they think about ETAs in a different way. And so being able to, I guess, adjust for that as part of your experience and sort of make sure that you're not getting a conflicting status update from Ozpost with your internal messaging system, those basics. It's amazing how many brands and retailers actually struggle to get that right today. And I get it, all of these tech systems are disconnected, they're not integrated well, and so you do end up with these circumstances where you do have this issue. So I think the first area that I would think about when I think about customer experience is how do you make the tracking consistent when you've got these multiple delivery workflows. I think then you start to think about, okay, well, how can I improve it? And this comes about both with customer-facing tools, so things like making requesting a refund very easy and giving you an answer in the moment. And so with our customer support AI agent that we have available, for example,
real AI,
real AI in this case, you can call up request a refund. The agent will look at the details of the delivery, and based on the policy that you've defined, which doesn't need to be rules based, right? You can just write, and this is where the real AI comes in, is that we're looking at sort of a generative model to make the decision, and it'll actually not require rules to make that determination. It will just sort of look at the facts of the delivery, look at the policy as you've defined it, and then make a decision based on that. And I think this is really exciting because the improvement to the customer experience is because you're getting that outcome in real time. And then you're also creating this operational and internal improvement for the merchant too, by saving the resources that you can then invest in improving the experience otherwise.
One of the things that we also, obviously Nash is providing services to a variety of clients, and maybe what would be a challenge, what would stop someone from saying you know what, I'm good with what I have. I don't need to step up. What would be some obstacles that typically that people kind of quote that why they shouldn't improve their last mile fulfillment? What are those challenges and how would you overcome them?
Yeah, I think it's any organization, there's always competing priorities. If you're a retailer in particular, you've got your in-store experience and you've got a whole different set of customers to your online experience. And one of the very obvious challenges is just where do you spend your time and where do you allocate your resources across your various priorities? And that's always a shifting landscape for these brands, especially in the current environment where there's just so much change in the industry and so many different things happening. That's one bucket. I'd say tech is the obvious other bucket. And I think no matter how good sort of a single platform or a single solution is, if it's not able to be integrated effectively with existing technology, or you're not able to get the data and information out of one platform and into another and link it together effectively, it's very hard to take action on it. And that's something that we focus on a lot at Nash, is that we recognize we don't do absolutely everything for every brand that we work with. And so one of our focuses is on integrating really effectively and being a sort of good partner as part of the tech ecosystem and sort of making that integration as easy as possible into other platforms and getting data out of other platforms too.
So we're gonna shift gears a little bit. I will ask kind of like around what do you guys do. I want to know a little bit more personal questions. And you're on a podcast. We want people to know who you are. So you've been in logistics for most of your career. I've looked through the LinkedIn. I did. So how have you seen like the changes like across this time, as in not just on technology, of course, but like how do you keep yourself still passionate about something which I would say to most people it's kind of like consumers don't think about it. It's like magic to them. Like, oh, the package I click, it shows up here. But how do you keep that? I would say what would be some interesting things that you have kind of experienced in your career, and also how do you keep going in this industry?
I think I was lucky in a few different ways. Firstly, my sort of like I joined Uber. It's a logistics marketplace and got some great experience there. But really in last mile logistics, especially for retail, I had a very exciting introduction to that where it sort of started in the middle of COVID, and I feel like the playbook was out the window in terms of how logistics worked at that time. And so I think that sort of excitement is carried through from there. And I think that gave me a really interesting start in the space and opportunity to sort of like not do things in the traditional way. The Pet Barn case study that we heard yesterday, I think is a great example of that, where that came out of a real customer need. And on the merchant side too, they had a store network and a network of employees that otherwise would have been out of a job basically. And so giving them the opportunity to use that in a new way in what was a sort of like a very unique time for the industry, I think was a sort of exciting start to logistics. And so starting in the on-demand space, and the way that I'd summarize it is just the continued opportunity to learn. And I love working with the brands that I get to work with at Nash, because they do have very different ways of working and different delivery models, different delivery choices. And so I feel like there's always a new way of learning how to do something, and then taking bits and pieces from all those different learnings and bringing that together and helping the next brand that we work with is something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, all right, cool. Hypothetical. Let's say you could give an advice to a younger version of yourself. What would that be? As in, with what you've seen or you learned to date, how would you have, let's say, encouraged him or give a younger version of you a bit of your wisdom right now?
I think it's similar to the last answer. It's like it's focused on the opportunities to learn. I think you especially earlier in my career anyway, I always felt there was like an urgency to get promoted, manage a team, do something like that. And you're sort of you end up, if you're making decisions based only on your progression, you can sometimes end up optimizing for the wrong thing in the long term. And really, one of the things that I've been lucky to work in a variety of different industries, variety of different companies, and that exposure to different ways of doing things, I think, is something that served me really well in my career. And I think that leaning into that as a young member of the workforce is super important, because it sort of gives you a broader base of skills that you can then take on to other roles. So yeah, be less focused on progression, focus more on learning, and that will serve you well in the long term as my.
Yeah. Okay. So what would be something that you would do to relax? What's a way that you cut loose after work?
So I'm lucky enough to live in a very beautiful part of the world. I live in Bondi in Sydney, and so probably one of my favorite things is going for a walk with my dog along the beach, and maybe jumping in the water after that. That's sort of probably the main way that I like to unwind after a busy day or a busy week.
All right. Yeah. Well, Bondi is beautiful, and that walk really is quite like amazing. So I'm jealous at the same time. I'm also amazed that we have such opportunities to do that. I would also want to ask, so what would be something that you have read recently or ever before that you think that would be something that the audience should also look into? As in, what would you recommend as a book that they should read?
In terms of a book, I'm reading Ben Shuri, who's the head chef of Attica. He's got a very interesting book at the moment out, completely unrelated to logistics, but really enjoy his sort of stories over his career. And the book's called Uses for Obsession, and I think he's sort of got this. He talks a lot about like he's got this obsessive mindset, and he always wants to do the best at everything he does, and talks about both the benefits of that, but also the pitfalls. And I think it's just a very sort of like honest look back at what's been a really awesome career in food. And then I think probably on the learning side and the more sort of like technical subject matter, There's a couple of newsletters that I subscribe to that I sort of recommend really heavily. Ben Thompson's is one, Stratechery, avid reader of that and have been for many years now. And I find that he's got just a great perspective on the tech landscape in general, the rise of AI, but also just more what goes on at some of these larger organizations and how they, think about their strategy, how that's perceived. And I think really helpful if you're sort of trying to develop your strategic muscle of how you think about things in technology.
Yeah. All right. We're winding down, so I wanted to ask a personal question. What was the last thing you bought online?
The last thing that I bought online,
that you don't mind sharing with us.
Yeah. So we're having a baby in May, which is
congrats.
Thank you. Big life change incoming, and so there's been a lot of baby shopping online. So have been becoming a power customer for baby bunting among others. So yeah, I think the last thing was actually a nappy bag, but it's been a variety of baby stuff.
So just one baby bag, not like a multiple different versions of that bag.
No, we didn't go through the try it before you buy it stage, but we've definitely invested in the nursery setup, that's for sure.
All right, I feel you. All right, last question then. So what is so maybe I think I want to give you a little bit more time to shamelessly plug your business. What else would you like to share with listeners, with our viewers?
Our focus at Nash is really on simplifying your last mile delivery experience and giving you the tools to create awesome customer experiences, improve your internal operations, and really manage the complexity across multiple delivery workflows. The actual solution that we deploy, we have modules and solutions that apply across the full delivery journey. So everything from dynamic pricing of delivery slots or identifying which ones maybe reduce carbon emissions from the delivery being completed. We have all of the tools to manage your internal fleet, from a driver app, route optimization. We can connect to sort of any third-party delivery method that you want to work with. The thing that continues to sort of like blow me away working at Nash, I think, is sort of the quality and the responsiveness of the tech team that we have. And I think building tech for enterprise and working with Nash is that you get the benefit of both that tech team, but also all of the other customers that are part of the network. And we work with the likes of Walmart in the US, 7-Eleven, Square for online ordering for restaurants, as well as a sort of like handful of leading partners here in this region. And I think what's really exciting is that you sort of get access to that learning, and everyone's sort of invested in making the product experience better. And so you get that benefit of working with Nash, as you sort of get the learnings indirectly almost from these other brands. And I think that's something that's been really exciting to see. So yeah, look, I think it's a fascinating space. I think the customer expectations are shifting, complexity is rising. We give you the tools to manage that, and excited to sort of grow our presence here in this region. And yeah, any customers that are interested, please do reach out.
All right, and that's Ben Goodger of Nash. So thank you so much for taking time to have a chat with us, and all the best with the incoming bundle of joy you'll be having.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an excellent event and great to meet.